Today, Bitcoin trades at its highest level in nearly 2 years as the deadline for spot Bitcoin ETFs approaches. Plus, eToro's Callie Cox and 3iQ's Mark Connors break down what could happen to crypto markets if those spot ETF applications get the go-ahead. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Mackenzie Sigalos. Crypto prices mixed as we're just hours away from the SEC's first deadline for a decision on spot Bitcoin ETFs among this latest batch of applications. Now that's tomorrow, January 10th, and it is the final deadline for the application from ARK21 shares. Though the SEC could approve all the pending applications from 13 asset managers all at once. As of noon Eastern, Bitcoin climbed more than 4%, inching closer to the $47,000 level after it crossed that mark yesterday. This morning, the cryptocurrency traded at its highest level in nearly 2 years. Ether, meanwhile, traded flat, and Solana climbed more than 6%, crossing $100 once again. Crypto-focused stocks, including Coinbase, MicroStrategy and miners, Marathon, and Riot, all in the red as of noon Eastern, with Coinbase dropping the most, by more than 3%. Now, there is one exception, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which saw a 2% pop. Okay, let's talk about the top stories. Digital Currency Group claimed last week that it had paid off its loans from crypto lending firm Genesis, but debtors say that that's not true. The group made the allegation in a filing yesterday, the first business day after DCG took to X to announce its payment of all short-term loans from Genesis. Now, according to that court filing, DCG still owes more than $26 million for interest and late fees on top of a Bitcoin payment that is yet to be determined. The filing states that, quote, the DCG entities have not satisfied their obligations in full pursuant to the partial repayment agreement and continue to owe the debtors' estates and their creditors significant sums of USD and BTC. We reached out to DCG but did not immediately hear back. Next, a new mysterious nonprofit group backed by the crypto industry is making moves to try and influence Congress ahead of the 2024 elections. According to records uncovered by CNBC, the Cedar Innovation Foundation, which was incorporated in Delaware in April, has launched advertisements against at least one powerful lawmaker who's up for re-election and quietly hired a group of strategists to fight on its behalf. The Cedar Innovation Foundation doesn't publicly disclose its donors or say on its website who runs the organization or where it's located. According to people familiar with the matter, Cedar Innovation is being heavily funded by crypto industry players, with Coinbase likely to write a check for the group by the end of the year. A Coinbase spokesperson declined to comment about the potential funding and pointed to public remarks by executives. In a post last month on X, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong said, quote, the crypto industry has a large war chest now to elect pro-crypto candidates in 2024, referring to a recent donation the company made to a new super PAC. According to an analysis by Reuters, crypto groups spent more than $18 million on lobbying in 2023. All right, back to spot Bitcoin ETFs for our main story. Today, in the final hours before a decision from the SEC, asset managers, including BlackRock, ARK21 shares, VanEck, WisdomTree, and others, filed updated documents. CoinDesk reported that the SEC sent comments to prospective issuers just hours after the asset managers filed documents yesterday, which explained fees for their proposed ETFs. Today's updated filings suggest that the companies were among those that received feedback from the agency. The updated filings show Invesco and Galaxy dropped fees to 0.39% from the earlier 0.59%, joining the majority of asset managers who disclosed fees in that lower range. This morning, John Palmer, Cboe Digital President, joined CNBC's Squawk Box to discuss the latest developments in the approval process for spot Bitcoin ETFs. The Cboe is one of the exchanges that will list those ETFs.
I think you've seen quite a lot of progress made really the last couple of weeks. Even yesterday, we saw some back and forth between the commission and the issuers on the S1s. So I think that's good sentiment, right? I mean, progress here is good. You're seeing the agencies engage, you're seeing the issuers engage, and all the filings from the exchanges are all up to date at this point from what we can see.
Today, Crypto World's Tanea McKeel spoke with eToro investment analyst Callie Cox and the director of research at 3iQ, Mark Connors, about what to expect for crypto markets ahead of the much-anticipated decision on those spot ETFs.
Obviously, we need to talk about the Bitcoin ETF that is been the story, but it really is the story of the week this week. I want to talk about markets today to start, though. Bitcoin looking a little changed right now, as I guess investors are sort of in wait and see mode with the ETF status, but altcoins down kind of across the board with a couple of exceptions. And I'll go to you for this one, Callie. What's up with the crypto market today?
Well, first of all, I think the Bitcoin ETF is the story of the year. And I know the year has only been a few days, but it's one of the major catalysts we're looking at in the crypto space for 2024. Thinking about today, though, you have to remember, yes, the Bitcoin ETF conversation is exciting. But at the same time, I mean, crypto markets have rallied strongly since the grayscale decision happened in August. That was the real moment where the crypto industry realized that a Bitcoin ETF could actually happen. So over the following days and weeks, we could see a crypto market that has trouble digesting this news now that it looks like we're getting it, and that might be the reason why we're seeing the less positive sentiment in altcoins, especially because this is a Bitcoin story, and with interest rates so high, investors have to choose where they're putting their money.
Mark, anything to add to that?
Agree. I love it. So today, I love how you said, right now, what's going on with altcoins. And then immediately Callie's like, well, wait a minute, let's go back to the August decision and see. I feel like, people in Bitcoin or people who are focused on this really look at Judge Rao's decision as the most underappreciated contributions to Bitcoin's adoption. So that's one reason why I think, to answer your question about altcoins in general or the digital asset industry, it's going to be materially higher in terms of adoption and price because the markets are still digesting the language in Judge Rao's August 29th decision, why the SEC did not appeal on October 13th, and why they spent the holidays engaging with those 13 people.
So let's talk a little bit more about that ETF. We know that there's this January 10th deadline coming up, and I've had so many conversations about what to expect on day one, on day 100, what the market reaction is going to be. Is there going to be a pop, or is it going to be a little bit tepid? What are you expecting on day one, Mark?
Day one, I expect a pop. I don't think the ETF is priced in for reasons we can talk about. The driver of price now, I think, according to our head trader, is because of pref's preferred premium over spot is pretty high right now. So you have some speculators driving it, but that's not a lot of volume. It's more at the margin. So the real volume has not entered the Bitcoin space. We can see that. So that's why I think we can, and I think I said it to you at the end of last year, 45 to 55,000 on the announcement, and I'll stick to that.
And Callie, in terms of impact to the Bitcoin price and the broader crypto market reaction, as well as, maybe what that looks like in crypto related stocks, what are you expecting to see, on day one, if you like, but even, more in the medium term, how do you expect to continue to see that impact reflected in these different assets?
Yeah, well, I think Mark is right. We still haven't seen, we've only scratched the surface of what the impact could be on Bitcoin from essentially this new door opening up to a whole new wave of investors. I'm not so sure if we'll see the impacts in the first few days. Selling the news is definitely a phenomenon we see over and over again in stock and crypto markets. So we're telling customers not to get too excited here, really keep your emotions in check, especially if you see Bitcoin prices slide. But over the months and even over years that we have in front of us, I would not be shocked to see, at minimum, foundation put into Bitcoin's price, because we could see more of those long-term investors utilize the ETF to get that exposure to crypto. To be clear, I think traders could benefit from the ETF as well. I think you'll see your fair share of traders versus holders or hodlers. But at the same time, I think, especially with the financial advisor space warming up to crypto, you're going to see more of those long-term investors, which could set that base and help the price find higher highs.
Looking at the different types of investors in the market, the retail versus the institutions, and, how much of it is coming from the advisor space, what do you expect to see in terms of initial inflows? I am assuming that a bunch of people are not just putting it all in on day one. How do you expect to see that play out over time, Mark?
I've taken a page from what Callie just said about counseling caution to investors not to get too nervous if all of a sudden the price drops 8,000 a couple of days after because of a lack of flows that people were expecting. That definitely is a possibility. We know that. The 1 month, 3 month, 6 month outlook will be dictated by exactly what you said, advisors that are going to be growing demand. So if I had to rank order where flows come from, they'll come from captive funds at Fidelity, BlackRock, multi-asset funds, where they can roll in a commodity, like a digital asset commodity like Bitcoin. That's captive money, no marketing. They just change a word, they just change the allocation. JP Morgan has those funds, BlackRock has them, we have them. A lot of people have those types of funds. That can happen immediately, say the first month or even the first week. Later on, though, registered investment advisors, and we have a call later today, and I know that, Callie, your wires are firing up too on the phones. People saying, how do I get 401k money? How do I get Bitcoin into 401k? Is it allowable? Those conversations are happening, and that's really where in Canada we saw a lot of our initial demand was in the retirement account space. So that's where, and that's not going to happen day one, but that's, like as Callie said, that's going to be the persistent demand that you see over time. At least that's what I think.
We know that the ETF is not the only driver of price right now, but it is the most significant one. So let's assume that a Bitcoin ETF does get approved this week. There's a market reaction, and like I said, it could be tepid and it could be eye-popping, but a little bit further out. At what point does this existence of this new product start to drop off as a catalyst and just kind of move to the background? How long can this run as a catalyst, I guess, Callie?
Yeah, I think that's a question of attention and degrees. And what I mean from that is we have a lot of catalysts to look at when it comes to the crypto markets this year. We have the Fed possibly eyeing rate cuts as soon as March. We have the Bitcoin halving coming up around April. We have new corporate accounting rules, which is very nerdy of me to bring up, but there are new FASB rules out there that could make it easier for companies to hold an account for Bitcoin and other crypto assets. So there are a lot of good storylines to consider when you're thinking about Bitcoin. And the market's attention could change from here to there depending on the headlines. But the Bitcoin ETF interest, I think, will always be there. It'll always be an undercurrent to consider when it comes to different catalysts to consider and how Bitcoin's price moves. We could see more headlines from that front. I mean, we still know so little at this point. Feels like we know so much, but so little at the same time. We don't even know which ETFs will hit the market. So depending on the innovations we see on the ETF side, the uses of that ETF, we could see it come back in and dominate flows from time to time.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World today. We will be back again tomorrow with the latest on the SEC and potential spot Bitcoin ETFs. We'll see you then.